Hey, listeners. Today I want to talk about a story. I want to tell you a story, and it is called A Tale of Two Mothers. Now, this is a true story, so I've changed names, I've changed some other identifying information, but it is mostly 100% true. So, this is a story about me. I'm one of those mothers. And the other one is a friend of mine, former friend from college, who, as many women in their 50s do, we followed each other on Facebook. And we both had a similar experience, as in, we both had children around the same time. Actually, we both had one child. We had one daughter about 21 years ago. So, following her on Facebook, her name is Kristen. I remember years ago during the 14 years that my daughter Edie was hating on me, where she wanted nothing to do with me, how jealous I was of Kristen and all of her many photos of she and her daughter Ellie. They seemed so close. They did everything together. It seemed like they shared everything. It was very, very painful for me back then. I remember seeing pictures of Ellie following in her mother's footsteps, as in she played a very unique type of sport in high school, just as her mom did at the same age. She got a job as a swim instructor, swim coach, just like her mom did. She followed her mom's footsteps. And I was so, so jealous. They were so close. And I so longed for that kind of closeness with Edie, who just pushed me away. A few years ago, if you've been listening to this podcast for very long, you know that I was finally able to reconcile my relationship with Edie. I finally put together why she rejected me for 14 years, starting with when at age 5, she felt so very rejected by me, as I myself fell into a very severe depressive episode. And she was rejected by me because anyone who's been around someone who's severely depressed, they don't see anyone but themselves. And that's exactly what Edie experienced of me. And so I owned it. I apologized. I wrote her a letter called A Letter to 5-Year-Old Edie, where I apologized. I just let her know how sorry I was for hurting her at that time. I also let her know in person after she read the letter that what she needed to know is that the rejection she experienced of me at that time was 100% a me problem and a 0% of a her problem. So that allowed us to reconcile. Also, you know what I started doing differently? I stopped talking to Edie and I started listening, like really listening. And I also learned how to just listen or be quiet if she had nothing to say at all, and not try to make her talk to me like I did before that. So over time, I won back her trust and we repaired our relationship. And you know what? Today, it is a beautiful relationship. We get along so well. And on my end, it feels like heaven. And I suspect she might feel the same because she keeps coming back. So we really enjoy each other's company today. It's a happy ending. But here's the irony. When I look at Kristen's Facebook page today, I see that her daughter Ellie has cut her off. I don't know all the details, but as a therapist, from the look of the many, many pictures, I can make an educated guess. I imagine Ellie felt suffocated by Kristen, not only because she was the only child, but also as a stand-in for what should have been her mom's romantic partner, because there are 0 photos of Kristen having any romantic partner or even friends, just photos of she and Ellie. The pictures and the corresponding comments tell a story of a mother who has no other focus other than her daughter, with whom she is obsessed. There are photos of Kristen orchestrating Ellie's 15th birthday party as if she's turning 5, doting over every detail, controlling every moment for Ellie and her friends. There's a photo of Kristen helping decorate the high school auditorium for Ellie's senior prom as if she's 7 and not 18. There is a overly detailed report of one of Ellie's high school sports games, as if the readers really need to know every single detail of the play-by-play. There's also a photo of Kristen and 17-year-old Ellie holding hands while walking together on a trail, and one of them kissing on the lips. There are also professional photos taken of the two of them at the beach, posing as if they are a married couple, having an anniversary photo taken. So maybe it is not surprising that in order for Ellie to differentiate from Kristen, she had to completely estrange herself. And yes, this is an extreme example of what we call enmeshment, but I have seen worse, such as when the child attempts suicide in order to finally differentiate from the parent, because that's a thing. Enmeshment is often much more subtle than Kristen and Ellie's story, yet it can be deadly for a child. Enmeshment is simply a failure to allow a child to differentiate, and this is necessary for their development. I realized Edie over-differentiated from me starting at age 5, which created a lot of suffering for both of us, but ultimately was better than the alternative, where differentiation is not allowed whatsoever. I will also admit, if Edie hadn't done this, I might have been a whole lot like Kristen. You see, I get where she's coming from. I get the lure of enmeshing ourselves with our child. I know what it's like to feel lonely at a soul level, and when you have a baby, to temporarily feel some relief. It feels amazing to feel needed by someone, to feel special and important, and a child can sporadically give this. I remember idealizing baby Edie, thinking how we would be so close and that she would never rebel as a teen like those other kids. I remember judging mothers who put their kids in daycare, believing I was somehow superior to them by being more present for my child, and that it would surely pay off by giving me the soulmate daughter of my dreams. Yes, Kristen, as much as I would love to judge the hell out of you, I first have to acknowledge how alike we are. Yikes. Maybe I should not cringe so readily. As a therapist, I am well versed in how humans function when we are not self-aware. And this is what we all have in common. Maybe I should not be surprised at stupid humans, including myself. What matters is not what we do, but rather how we respond when we are made aware. Whether we learn from our mistakes and do better, or choose to defend and deflect, digging in our heels. Like the quote by Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. This is what matters. This is what distinguishes a safe person from someone who is unsafe, or a healthy human from one who is not. Using a child to feed your narcissistic supply to feel important, or using a child to never feel alone because they're a captive audience who will never reject you, are both types of what we call devouring, because they objectify the child to meet your needs. A devouring parent doesn't want to break up the original unit that they have with the child. The child will find a way to differentiate, which again could be by suicide or by bonding with a romantic partner in order to extricate herself. Most often, though, it is by dissociating, which is like emotional suicide, in which she cuts herself off from all her feelings, becoming zombie-like. Whatever the result, everyone loses. We are not designed to objectify others or to be objectified. Devouring our children is never good and never satisfies because we were created to be whole within ourselves. There's no substitute for our own choice to self-attune and integrate with our inner child. There's no substitute for self-nurture because it is life-giving, a life that we alone can give ourselves. My favorite quote from Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, is where she realizes that a family is where you should feel both held and free. Easier said than done because it requires a lot of self-awareness from the parent as well as ongoing empathy where the parent puts the child's feelings and needs ahead of her own. As a therapist, I see many clients who were never held and others who were never free. Both are detrimental, where the child is not actively loved regardless of what the parent feels internally. I recall feeling so much love toward Edie, but because I wasn't helping her to be both held and free by me, she felt despised by me. It created so much shame on her end and so much needless animosity between us. You see, I was so immersed in myself, overwhelmed with my feelings, I wasn't able to imagine or empathize with hers. This is empathy, building a bridge of our imagination between ourselves and that other person and imagining what they feel. It requires a choice because in order for us to cross that bridge, we first have to choose to prioritize that person's feelings over our own. In order to do this regularly, we need two things. The first is we have to be shame-free. I have found we simply cannot feel empathy for others when we ourselves are in shame. All we can feel when we have shame is our own debilitating pain. So if you, listener, have not already done this, please go back to my episode called Dislodging Shame Residue, where I lead my listeners through an integration exercise to rid ourselves of shame. Now, you may have to do this exercise multiple times over time, not all at once, but you might have to do it multiple times to address different shame imprints from your childhood. But don't be discouraged by this. The exercise itself only takes a few minutes and it is so powerful. Just perform this exercise for yourself after you experience any kind of triggering experience in the present, and it will lead you back to an imprint in the past where shame is lodged and you can set yourself free. The second thing that we have to do is to be grounded in reality, that we are not in competition with another person. It is not a zero-sum game. Rather, when we choose their feelings over ours, we're not losing anything, but rather it is a win-win. Because ultimately, when we show empathy, we will end up feeling much more satisfied as a result. Believe me, I have learned the hard way. So thank you for listening today. Please share this with a friend, subscribe to this podcast, and please give me a great review. Thank you so much.